The council chamber fell silent when Princess Velithra raised her hand toward the human prisoner. Every eye in the vaulted hall turned to her, some curious, most horrified. She had just committed the gravest breach of protocol in 300 years. "This one," she said, her voice carrying the cold authority of her bloodline. "I claim him." Ambassador Keth'val's pale face flushed violet with rage. "Your Highness, this creature was captured performing sonic contamination in the Meridian colonies. The penalty is death. You cannot simply. I am aware of what I cannot do, Ambassador." Velithra descended the crystal steps from her observation throne, her ceremonial robes trailing behind her like liquid silver. "And yet, I find myself doing it." The human stood in the center of the chamber, his wrists bound by gravitational shackles that hummed with contained force. He was tall for his species, though still shorter than most Velithrin, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes the color of a dying sun. Those eyes watched her approach with something she rarely saw directed at her, neither fear nor calculation but simple, weary curiosity. "Do you know who I am?" she asked him. "The woman who just saved my life, apparently." His voice was rough, unused. How long had they kept him in the holding cells? "Should I kneel?" "Most would. Most haven't spent 3 months in a box waiting to die." He met her gaze steadily. "I'm having trouble finding the energy for ceremony." Behind her, she heard the sharp intake of breath from a dozen noble observers. No one spoke to the Imperial Princess this way. No one. She found, to her own surprise, that she didn't mind. "Your name," she said. "The records list you as human male, unregistered, Marcus Cole, Marcus Cole." The human syllables felt strange on her tongue. "You were caught singing in the Velithra marketplace, singing of all things. You must have known the penalty." Something flickered in his amber eyes. Pain, quickly buried. There were children there. Refugee children from the outer reach. They were crying. Their parents were dead, and they were crying, and no one was doing anything about it. He shrugged, the gesture pulling against his restraints. "So I sang them a lullaby. The same one my mother sang to me before the Keth'val raids took her." The chamber remained deathly silent. Velithra felt something shift in her chest, an unfamiliar sensation like ice cracking over deep water. "Human music is banned across 12 systems," Ambassador Keth'val spat from behind her. "It is neurologically dangerous, emotionally manipulative, a weapon disguised as art. This creature knew the law, and violated it willingly. Your claim is invalid, Princess." The tribunal," Velithra interrupted, turning to face him, "serves at the pleasure of the imperial throne. My father is dying. My brother has fled to the outer provinces. Until the succession is formalized, I am the throne." She let the weight of that settle over the assembly. "This human is now my personal property, under the salvage rights of the Third Compact. Anyone who wishes to dispute this may take the matter to the Emperor directly." No one moved. No one would dare wake her father for anything short of invasion. She turned back to Marcus Cole. "You will come with me. Do I have a choice? No. But you will have a room, meals, and your life." She gestured for the guards to release his shackles. "In my experience, that is more than most prisoners receive." He rubbed his wrists where the gravitational fields had left faint bruising. "Why?" It's a fair question. She had asked herself the same thing the moment she'd raised her hand. Why risk the Council's wrath for a human, a species barely tolerated in Velithran space, considered primitive and emotionally unstable? Why intervene for a man she had never met, whose only crime was singing to frightened children? Because he had sung to frightened children. Because in a chamber full of nobles who would have watched him die without a flicker of discomfort, he had looked at her with tired eyes and asked if he should kneel, and then hadn't. Because she was so very tired of people who knelt. "Because I wish it," she said, which was the only answer a princess needed to give. She turned and walked toward the chamber's private exit, not looking back to see if he followed. He did. Her private quarters occupied the eastern spire of the Imperial Palace, high above the glittering sprawl of the capital city. The rooms had been her mother's once, before the fever took her, vast, elegant, and perpetually cold. Velithra had never bothered to change the temperature settings. The chill reminded her to stay sharp. She had her attendants prepare the small antechamber adjacent to her study for the human. It was barely more than a servant's room, but it had a window overlooking the palace gardens and a bed that wasn't a prison cell. He seemed surprised by both. "You're not what I expected," he said, standing at the window with his back to her. The evening light caught the scars on his hands. Old burns, she noted. Working hands. "From the stories, I thought Velithran royalty would be colder." "The stories are not wrong." She remained near the door, maintaining proper distance. I am not kind, Marcus Cole. I am practical. A dead human in my father's court creates diplomatic complications with Earth's remnant government. A living human in my service demonstrates my independence from the Council's more conservative factions. So I'm a political statement. Yes. He turned to face her, and again she was struck by the directness of his gaze. Velithra learned from childhood to modulate their expressions, to reveal nothing unintended. This human's face was an open wound. And if I refuse to be useful, if I just sit in this room and cause no complications at all, then you will have a comfortable life and a quiet death many years from now. She tilted her head, studying him. Is that what you want? He was silent for a long moment. Then, quietly, I don't know what I want anymore. I used to know. I had a ship, a crew, a purpose. I smuggled medical supplies to colonies the Empire had abandoned. I thought I was making a difference. His laugh was bitter. Then the Keth'val found us. My crew's dead. My ship is scrap. And I'm here, in a princess's palace, because I sang a song to children who will probably be dead within the year anyway. You believe your efforts were meaningless, weren't they? Velithra considered the question. In her world, the world of councils and compacts and carefully managed power, individual actions rarely changed anything. The system was too vast, too entrenched. One person could no more alter its course than a single drop could redirect an ocean. And yet, the children stopped crying, she said. When you sang to them, the children stopped crying. He stared at her. I watched the security footage, she continued. Before the guards took you, for 3 minutes and 27 seconds, those children forgot their terror. They looked at you as if you were. She searched for the word. As if you were safe. As if, in a universe that had taken everything from them, one thing remained that was gentle. Her voice had softened without her permission. She corrected it immediately. It was a foolish risk. You should have known better. But I do not think it was meaningless. She turned to leave. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we will discuss what use you might be to me. She was almost through the door when his voice stopped her. Princess Dut. She paused but did not turn. Thank you. The words hung in the air between them, simple, unadorned, carrying a weight that formal Velithran gratitude never did. She said nothing. She walked away. But she felt his thanks settle into some hollow place she had not known existed, and she wondered what she had begun. 3 weeks passed. Velithra found reasons to visit her study more often than strictly necessary. The human was usually there, reading through the historical archives she had granted him access to, or standing at the window watching the alien sky with an expression she couldn't quite name. He was studying, she realized. Learning. He had already acquired a functional vocabulary in formal Velithran, remarkable for a human, whose species was not known for linguistic aptitude. When she commented on it, he shrugged. I grew up on trade stations. You learn languages, or you starve. He glanced at her. Besides, your people's poetry is beautiful. Even in translation. You have read our poetry? The Laments of Keth'val. The 17 Silences. The Song of the Last Emperor. He smiled slightly, and she noticed for the first time that his smile transformed his face, softened the hard lines of it, revealed something younger underneath. I understand why you banned human music now. Your art is all about control, measured emotion, structured grief. Our music is... He searched for the word, wilder. It doesn't ask permission to make you feel. It is considered a form of assault. I know. That's what makes it interesting. She should have reprimanded him. She should have reminded him of his place, of the danger his species' art represented. Instead, she found herself sitting across from him, something she had never done with any servant or attendant. Sing something for me, she said. He went very still. That's forbidden. I am aware. If anyone heard, my quarters are shielded against surveillance, a necessity given the Council's fondness for espionage. She leaned back in her chair, watching him. I have read the scientific studies. I know human music affects Velithran neurology differently than it does yours. I wish to understand why my people fear it so deeply. He studied her for a long moment. She had the uncomfortable sensation that he was seeing more than she intended to show. You're lonely, he said. The words struck like a blade. She kept her expression perfectly neutral, but something must have shown, because his face softened. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. You should not have. Her voice was ice. You presume too much. You're right. I do. He stood, moving to the window, putting distance between them. It's a human failing. We see someone who looks like they're carrying the weight of a world alone, and we want to help. Even when help isn't wanted. Even when it isn't our place. The silence stretched between them. My mother died when I was 7, Velithra heard herself say. My father retreated into his duties and never emerged. My brother was always more interested in pleasure than responsibility. I have spent my entire life surrounded by thousands of people, and I have never once had a conversation that was not calculated for political advantage. Why was she telling him this? She didn't know. The words simply came as if his presence had cracked something open that she had long kept sealed. Until now? He asked quietly. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. He turned from the window. The dying light painted his features in shades of amber and gold, and she was struck suddenly by how alien he looked, and how beautiful in the strange way of alien things. The song my mother sang to me, he said. It's called a lullaby. It's meant to comfort children, to help them sleep. The words don't translate well, but the melody. He hesitated. It's the last thing I have of her. I've never sung it for anyone except those refugee kids. I am not asking you to. I know. He took a breath. I'm offering. And then, softly, he began to sing. The melody was simple, a handful of notes, rising and falling like breath. But the effect on Velithra was immediate and devastating. She felt the song move through her like a physical force, bypassing every defense she had constructed over 30 years of courtly survival. It found the grief she had buried when her mother died. It found the rage she had never allowed herself to feel toward her absent father. It found the loneliness she had just denied, and it held all of it, gently, the way a parent holds a frightened child. Tears slid down her cheeks. She had not cried since she was 7 years old. Marcus stopped singing. His eyes were wet too. I'm sorry, he whispered. I should have warned you. Human music, it doesn't just make you feel. It makes you feel everything. Everything you've been holding back. She should have been furious. She should have had him dragged back to the cells for this violation, this assault on her composure. Instead, she found herself laughing, a broken, startled sound that surprised them both. No wonder it's banned, she said. No wonder, he agreed. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, an undignified gesture she would never have permitted anyone else to witness. You will tell no one of this. Of course. I mean it, Marcus. If the council learned that I had permitted, that I had requested, I know. He moved closer, slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. Your secret is safe. All of your secrets. He reached out and very gently touched her hand. It was the first time anyone had touched her without permission since her mother's death. She should have recoiled. She should have punished him for the presumption. She didn't move. I think, she said slowly, that I understand now why my people fear your kind. Because we make you feel, because you make us want to. His fingers intertwined with hers. His skin was warm, warmer than Velithran flesh. She could feel his pulse against her palm, steady and alive. Is that so terrible? He asked. She looked at their joined hands, at his scarred fingers wrapped around her elegant ones, at the impossible gap between their species, their stations, their worlds, and how small it seemed in this moment. I don't know, she admitted, but I think I would like to find out. The delegation from the Keth'val Dominion arrived without warning. Velithra received the news while reviewing trade agreements in her study. Marcus was there, as he often was now, reading in the corner, his presence a quiet comfort she had stopped questioning. The messenger's words turned her blood to ice. Ambassador Dreveth requests an immediate audience with the Imperial heir, the functionary recited. He brings a proposal of alliance. Alliance. The word was a poison wrapped in silk. The Keth'val did not form alliances. They absorbed. They conquered. They erased. Marcus looked up from his book. He had learned enough Velithran politics in the past months to understand the implications. His face went pale. The Emperor? Velithra asked. His Majesty's condition has worsened. The physicians say he may not survive the week. Which meant she was effectively already Empress. And the Keth'val knew it. Tell Ambassador Dreveth, I will receive him in the Grand Hall in 1 hour. She dismissed the functionary with a gesture, then turned to Marcus. You should not be present for this. Why? Because I'm human? Because the Keth'val murdered your crew? Because they burned human colonies across the outer reach? Because if Dreveth sees you in my household, he'll know you're not afraid of them. Marcus stood, setting his book aside. Isn't that exactly the message you want to send? She stared at him. In the months since his arrival, he had changed, grown more confident, more willing to challenge her. She found, to her continual surprise, that she valued it. You don't know what they're capable of. I know exactly what they're capable of. I've seen it. His voice was quiet, but there was steel beneath it. I watched them burn the Meridian station. I held my navigator while she died from radiation poisoning because they didn't consider a quick death worthy of their ammunition. I know the Keth'val princess better than anyone in your court. She should have ordered him to stay hidden. Instead, she said, "Then come and tell me what you see." Ambassador Dreveth was everything Velithra had expected. Tall even by Velthran standards, his scales a deep crimson that marked him as high caste, his eyes flat and calculating as a predator's. He moved through the grand hall with the easy confidence of someone who had never been denied anything in his life. His gaze swept over the assembled nobles, the guards, the glittering architecture, and stopped on Marcus. A human. Dreveth's thin lips curved into something that was not quite a smile. How quaint. The Imperial household keeps exotic pets now. Velithra felt Marcus tense beside her. She spoke before he could. Marcus Cole is my personal advisor on human affairs. Given the Empire's expanding interests in former human territories, his expertise is invaluable. Expertise. Dreveth's tone made the word an insult. I was not aware humans possess such a thing. Then you have much to learn, Ambassador. She gestured to the chairs arranged before her throne. Please, sit. Explain this alliance you propose. Dreveth's proposal was exactly what she had feared, a marriage. Her hand, in exchange for Keth'val support in the succession crisis her brother's absence had created. A permanent binding of the two empires through blood and ceremony. The benefits are considerable, Dreveth purred. Military protection, trade advantages, an end to the border conflicts that have plagued both our peoples. And what does the Dominion receive in return? Access. He smiled, showing too many teeth. To your shipyards, your jump gate network, your genetic archives. Genetic archives. He wanted breeding rights. The ability to engineer Keth'val Velithran hybrids, combining her people's telepathic gifts with Keth'val resilience. An army of psychic soldiers. She kept her revulsion carefully hidden. A generous offer. I will require time to consider, of course. Shall we say, 3 days? His eyes flickered to Marcus. Though I would counsel against taking advice from lesser species on matters of imperial importance. Humans are notoriously sentimental. They confuse weakness with virtue. Marcus said nothing, but Velithra saw his hands clench at his sides. After Dreveth departed, she retreated to her private quarters. Marcus followed, silent until the doors sealed behind them. You can't marry him. I am aware of your opinion. He's a monster. His people are monsters. They'll use you to destroy everything. I know. She turned to face him, and something in her expression made him stop. I know what he is. I know what accepting would mean. But if I refuse, the Keth'val will take offense. They'll ally with my brother's faction instead. Civil war is certain, and they'll pick the corpse clean when it's over. So you're just going to sacrifice yourself? Become that things. I am going to do what I must. Her voice cracked, just slightly, as I have always done. As my mother did, and her mother before her. This is what it means to rule. You make impossible choices so your people don't have to. That's not ruling. That's surrender. Then, what would you have me do? She spread her hands in a gesture of helpless fury. Fight? With what? My father's fleet is aging. My treasury is depleted. I have no allies, no leverage, nothing but the throne I sit on, and the blood in my veins. Tell me, Marcus Cole, what would a human do in my position? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, softly, we'd find another way. There is no other way. There's always another way. He stepped closer. You've spent your whole life being told what's possible, and what isn't. What's proper and what's forbidden. But I've seen you, Velithra. I've seen who you are when you forget the rules. You're not someone who surrenders. You're someone who changes the game. Her name. He had used her name without title, without permission. The intimacy of it struck her like a blow. You don't understand. I understand that you're afraid. His hand found hers, as it had that first night. I understand that you've carried this empire alone for so long you've forgotten there are people who would carry it with you. I understand that you think you have to sacrifice your happiness for duty, because that's what everyone taught you. Marcus, but you don't. His other hand came up to cup her face, gentle as the melody he had sung her. You're allowed to want things. You're allowed to fight for them. You're allowed to choose something other than the path that hurts you. She closed her eyes. His touch was warm against her skin, his presence solid and real in a way nothing had been for years. If I refuse Dreveth, she whispered, everything falls apart. Then we put it back together. Differently. Better. You make it sound simple. It's not. It'll be the hardest thing you've ever done. He pressed his forehead to hers. But you won't do it alone. I promise you that. She should have pulled away. She should have remembered her duty, her position, the 1,000 reasons why this was impossible. Instead, she kissed him. It was not the calculated kiss of political alliance, nor the formal exchange of Velithran bonding rituals. It was desperate and graceless and utterly human. A collision of lips and breath, and years of loneliness finally finding harbor. When they broke apart, she was trembling. "Whatever happens," she said, "I want you to know." The door chimed. "Emergency protocol." She answered it to find her seneschal, pale-faced and shaking. "Your Highness, the Emperor is dead, and Prince Sethran has returned with a Keth'val fleet. He's claiming the throne." The world tilted. Velithra gripped Marcus's hand like an anchor. How long until they reached the capital? 6 hours. 6 hours. 6 hours to prevent a war, stop a coup, and save everything she had ever known. She straightened her spine, squared her shoulders, became, in a single breath, the ruler she had been trained to be. "Summon the council, all of them. Tell them the Empress commands their presence." The seneschal bowed and fled. Velithra turned to Marcus. "I will need your help. You have it. What I am about to do may be unprecedented. It may be seen as madness. It will certainly be dangerous." He smiled, that transformative smile that made him look young and unbroken. "Good thing I've always been drawn to dangerous women." Despite everything, she laughed. The council assembled in the great hall under the shadow of invasion. Nobles, ambassadors, generals, all the power brokers of the Velithran Empire, gathered at the command of a princess who had become an empress in the span of a single night. Velithra sat on the crystal throne for the first time, feeling its cold weight against her back. Marcus stood at her right hand, where an advisor would stand. Where, in ancient times, a consort would stand. Let them see. Let them wonder. Let them understand that everything was about to change. "My brother approaches with a foreign fleet," she said without preamble. "He intends to take this throne by force, with Keth'val backing. If he succeeds, our empire becomes a puppet state within a generation. Our genetic archives become their breeding grounds. Our children become their soldiers." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. She waited for silence. Ambassador Dreveth offered me an alternative. Marriage, alliance, the same servitude wrapped in prettier cloth. She rose from the throne. I rejected it. The murmurs became shouts. She raised her hand, and somehow, perhaps through sheer force of will, the hall fell silent. I rejected it because I am done with the old ways. The calculated marriages. The strategic sacrifices. The slow death of everything that makes us who we are, traded away piece by piece for survival. She descended the steps from the throne, moving among them. My father spent his reign compromising. My grandfather before him. 300 years of compromise, and look where it has brought us. To the edge of annihilation, with nothing left to trade but ourselves. She stopped in the center of the hall. Tonight we stop compromising. Tonight, we fight. With what? The challenge came from Admiral Vethkan, her father's oldest commander. Our fleet is scattered. Our defenses are designed for trade protection, not warfare. Prince Sethran has 30 Keth'val warships. I know. Velithra smiled. That's why we're not going to fight with ships. She turned to Marcus. Tell them. He stepped forward, facing the assembled power of an alien empire with nothing but his voice and his conviction. The Keth'val conquest isn't just military, he said. It's cultural. They don't just take your territories. They take your identity. Your art, your music, your stories. They erase everything that makes a people unique and replace it with their own uniformity. He paused, letting that sink in. That's why they banned human music. Not because it's dangerous to Velithran neurology, though it is. Because it spreads. Because once people hear it, they remember what it feels like to feel. They remember that there are things worth more than survival. The Keth'val fear that, Velithra said. They fear anything they can't control. And the one thing they have never been able to control is the human capacity for emotional warfare. You're suggesting, Admiral Vethkan said slowly, that we fight a military invasion with music. I'm suggesting we fight it with everything. Velithra's voice rang through the hall. Human music. Velithran poetry. Every suppressed art form, every forbidden expression, every voice they try to silence. We broadcast it on every frequency. We beam it into every ship in that fleet. We remind every soldier wearing Keth'val colors that they were not always slaves, and they don't have to die as ones. It will never work, someone said. It will work, Marcus replied. Because I've seen it work. In the Meridian colonies. In the refugee camps. In every place the Keth'val tried to crush the human spirit, and failed. You can kill bodies. You can destroy cities. But you can never, silence a song that people want to sing. The hall was silent. Velithra could feel the weight of decision pressing down on every person present. Then, slowly, Admiral Vethkin rose. My mother sang to me, he said. Before the cultural reforms, before the standardization, she sang old songs, songs from before the Empire, I'd forgotten until this moment. He looked at Velithra with something like wonder. You're asking us to remember. I'm asking you to be more than afraid. One by one, the council members rose. Not all of them. Some remained seated, faces closed, unwilling to abandon the safety of old ways. But enough. Enough to matter. Signal the fleet, Velithra commanded. Prepare for broadcast. And someone find me a musician. The battle for the Velithran Empire was fought not with weapons, but with sound. As Prince Sethran's invasion force entered the capital's defense perimeter, they were met with a wall of music, human lullabies and Velithran laments, ancient war chants and modern protest songs, all woven together into a tapestry of defiant beauty. The Keth'val commanders scrambled to block the transmissions. But music, unlike bullets, cannot be stopped by shields. It found its way into every ship, every comm system, every soldier's helmet. And it did what music has always done. It made people feel. The rebellion started small. A Keth'val pilot who remembered her grandmother's songs, who had been told all her life that such things were weakness, who suddenly couldn't pull the trigger on a civilian transport. A squad of occupation soldiers who laid down their weapons rather than fire on a crowd singing in harmony. A warship captain who opened his channels and broadcast his own people's forbidden anthems, rallying others to his side. By the time Sethran's flagship reached the capital, his fleet was in chaos. Half his ships had mutinied. The other half were too busy suppressing internal revolts to fight. He surrendered at dawn. The coronation of Empress Velithra was unlike any in Velithran history. There was music, human music, performed by Marcus Cole himself, standing before the crystal throne where no human had ever stood. The assembled nobles wept openly, their tears no longer shameful but celebrated. 300 years of emotional suppression ended in a single ceremony. When it was over, Velithra descended from the throne and took Marcus's hand in full view of the court. The Empress cannot marry a human, Ambassador Ketharin said, his voice holding a note of desperation. The laws were written by people who are dead, Velithra replied. I am alive, and I am done being ruled by ghosts. She turned to Marcus. In his eyes, she saw everything she had spent her life being told she couldn't have. Partnership, understanding, love that wasn't calculated for advantage. Human music was banned across 12 systems, she said softly, for his ears alone. The alien princess asked you to sing for her, and you ended an empire's worth of silence. He smiled. Not bad for a lullaby. Not bad for a human. She kissed him then, in front of the entire court, in front of the galaxy's watching eyes. It was unprecedented. It was scandalous. It was exactly the statement she intended to make. The empire would change. It would be difficult, bloody, controversial. There would be resistance, rebellion, 1,000 challenges she couldn't yet foresee. But she would not face them alone. And somewhere across 12 systems, people who had been forbidden to sing were lifting their voices at last. Free, defiant, beautifully human. The Empress listened to them and smiled, and began to hum along. The end.